Hey Vic, a lot of new injury stuff today. Can I go by one with the guys, or
Uh, yeah, go ahead.
Justin Sternad, the linebacker with the wrist yesterday?
Yeah, he hurt his wrist yesterday. He had to get it operated on. He'll be out for the entire season.
Was that a ligament issue or a broken bone? Or
Uh, it was a dislocation that had, that in and of itself wouldn't put him out for the year, but there was other complications too. So
Mike Purcell?
he just has some calf tightness, and we're being conservative with him.
Tim Patrick?
Same, soft
Uh,
tissue.
Right, Bosby?
Same,
Holder?
same.
And then Malik Carney?
He's sick.
Okay.
Okay, not COVID sick, just regular sick.
Okay. At inside linebacker now, you're down a couple guys. Is Justin Hollins an option there for depth?
Yeah, we moved him there today, and that's where he worked exclusively today.
Next up, Barney, go ahead.
Hey, Vic, I got a couple of questions that deal with more NFL league-wide issues. Number one, there's a little bit of consternation from coaches, and I'm wondering if you think the NFL should have a blanket policy on no fans for the opener, like MLB does for competitive balance purposes.
No,
And
I
then-
don't really I really don't give a damn about that. If we can play in a stadium that's full, half full, third full, home or away, we're happy. That shows progress with the COVID. Otherwise, I personally don't care.
Okay.
Other than I would like to see fans.
Sure. Secondly, yesterday there was a lot of false positives with the COVID-19 testing with, I think, 11 teams. Do you have a level of concern, like if this happens in the regular season and you would have to hold guys back out of practice, that sort of thing? You have a level of concern there with this, the veracity of the testing and that?
No, I don't. That's something I have no control over. So I learned a long time ago not to worry about things you can't control. All we can control is to educate and emphasize to our guys what they need to do to mitigate this virus. And however it plays out, it plays out. I think it was a good reaction by the league with all those false positives. I think if that had happened early in the procedure in training camp, they may not have been equipped to handle it the way they did. But, this is a time where we all have got to adjust.
Hey, Vic, when you are working through the injuries, did you sort of expect this may be a possibility that you would have so many of the soft tissue or hamstrings or groins or whatever? Is that something you had thought about a few weeks ago as you worked through your practice plans?
No, because, already this year practicing less than we practiced a year ago at this time, we have more than we had the entire season last year. So no, I was not expecting that. I think there were some flaws in the way we set up the acclimation period along with the other stuff, but it doesn't do anybody any good to whine about it now. We just got to adjust and improvise and react to it, which we did. Today we altered practice. That wasn't the planned practice that we had today. That was a practice we were going to do later in the week. We did it today instead. And we'll see how we came out of that. And, what we exactly do tomorrow will be a product of what I think we need to do. But I did know we were going to have to do some adjusting as we go. And today was an example of that.
When you say that acclimation period, were there certain things you would have wanted to do that you didn't get to do?
Yeah, a little bit of that. And I think there was too many days there where they were going, and we should have adjusted, but we followed the schedule the league put out, and, we live and learn from it.
Next up, Brandon Cristal.
Coach, kind of along those same lines, with everything being so different this year, how challenging is it for you and your staff to kind of ramp up and throttle back and ramp up, and try to hit that timeline so you're ready for 3 weeks from tonight when y'all play your first game?
Yeah, it's a fine line that we constantly have to juggle every day because, as you said, we're under different circumstances, shorter preseason, no preseason games, but yet, as you alluded to, 3 weeks today, we're kicking it off. So we've got to push the envelope as much as we can, but always being ready to adjust if we need to, like we did today.
Next up, Eric Dalala.
Yeah, Coach, just wondering your philosophy on practicing what you guys do, both offensively and defensively, versus getting ready for what the Titans are going to do in week 1 and how you handle that in kind of an unusual training camp.
Yeah, today was one of those days. Today's work was both sides of the ball were against some things that we're going to see from early opponents and things that we need to see on both sides of the ball that we don't get from each other's offense or defense. So today, that was the focus. That was planned. We have one or two more of those planned before we get into game week, and we'll do that along the way.
Next up, Nick Kosmider.
Hi, Vic. I was just wondering what kind of areas of improvement you had targeted for Josie Jewell coming into this season, and what have you just thought so far of his training camp 9 practices in?
I think he's had a good camp so far. He's showing the benefit of, being here a second year. The system hadn't changed much. So he's a smart player to begin with. And when he knows more of all the fine things, he's one of those players that could put it to good use. And, he's had a good camp, and we're pleased where he's at.
Next up, Troy Wright. Go ahead.
Coach, you are a teacher by trade. Players sometimes refer to you as a professor. You have a good feel for this. Given the truncated preseason, is there a tendency to maybe simplify and let's just do 15 things well, then put everything in? Do you have to adjust your approach in the way you're teaching it in terms of what's realistic to execute?
You do. At first, comparing this to the lockout year, which that year we were a totally new staff where I hadn't even met our players until training camp. And but we had a normal training camp, with preseason games and the length. We put a lot in because we wanted to expose our players to it in case we needed it, and also was a way for us to learn our players. I think along the same lines here, we don't want to not put something in that we think is valuable, although it might be cumbersome to learn in the short amount of time that we do have available. But I do think because the camp is shorter with no preseason games, we're going to have to find the mid-ground there between what I explained with the lockout year and this year. So, yes, we're going to have to be able to execute what we do, which may mean we cut back. But we also, I think, have to push the envelope, and if we feel something's important to have schematically, that we're able to do it.
Next up, Kyle Newman. Go ahead.
Hey, Vic, how do you think Deshaun Hamilton has learned from the ups and downs of last year, and what are you looking for him out of this camp to kind of continue to build and earn some time there?
I think he's learned a lot. He struggled last year. He was hard on himself. I can remember he had a drop in a game there, I don't know, with 5 or 6 games to go. And, and I called him into my office and showed him one of the top receivers in the league who has great hands dropping one that was an easy catch. And, just told him, I said, everybody drops one every now and then, but you can't let it linger. And I said, this player is not going to let that one linger. You can't let it linger. And I thought he played better the last quarter of the season last year, and I think he's picked up from where he left off.
Guys, time for 2 more. Andrew, then Zach. Andrew, go ahead.
Hey, Vic, Justin Hollins, of course, he was working at outside linebacker before, like you mentioned. In what areas did he grow last year, and do you still see him as somebody who's that hybrid who can be both inside and outside for the long term?
Well, we were going to originally planning on leaving him at outside in this camp with the thought of knowing that he might be able to play inside some, particularly in nickel. In the back of our mind And now with the injuries that we've had at ILB, you know, it's kind of forced our hands to do that a little earlier. And you never know, it may turn out to be a blessing in disguise for Justin and for us. So, you know, we're not putting him in there just because we need somebody in there. He's a guy that has a chance in there. And sometimes when you're forced to do something, both as a coaching staff or as a player, it ends up being a blessing. And I'm hoping that's what happens here.
Last one, Zach, go ahead.
With Justin Stranad being kind of the coverage guy you were hoping for at linebackers, are you hoping that Justin Hollins fills that in, or are you going to rely on Josie Jewell for that? How are you going to replace that?
Well, we'll see. You know, Justin, this was his first day there, and it wasn't a normal practice day as far as training camp goes. So he does have good recall. He's a smart guy. He recalls the stuff he was learning last year at that position. And I think we'll find out if he's grown at all and is a guy capable of that. You know, he does have some good length. He can run. He's just going to learn to play with more explosiveness and decisiveness because things happen quicker and more things happen at inside linebacker.